Welcome to Labbayk, our fifth day of the series 2021, our second year. Labbayk Allahumma Labbayk. Here we come, here we answer your call, Ya Allah. A reminder that to answer this call requires some discipline, some awareness, some decision, some intentionality, some commitment, and before all that, a willingness to be open to God. Which God? Like we've said before, the God that we've been talking about is not a distant God. We're talking about a God that created everything in heavens and earth, and oceans and air, and anything that ever existed, and everything that is in between. When we're talking to God, we're talking to the same creator that creates everyone else, including our enemies, including the people who hurt us, everything, and what is yet to come. When we talk to God, we're talking to the maker of your wishes, the maker of your ambitions, the maker of the love, happiness, and wealth and health that you desire. This is God, this is who we're talking to. So we want to tell God, and we've been speaking about this in the previous seminars here at Labbayk meetings. We want to tell God what we see, what we feel, and what we long for. We want to tell God what went wrong, what went right, and how we want things to be. We want to tell God all the blessings that we may have been enjoying, even during tough times. We need to begin now, talking to God and answering the call to God. Labbayk Allahumma Labbayk, Labbayk la sharika laka Labbayk. Here we come. Here we come. Let us begin with Al-Fatiha. May I ask any one of our good friends to read us Al-Fatiha, please?
Bismillah, I can do that, sister.
Thank you, Dr. Ziba.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. Ameen.
Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, we begin, and let's take just a moment to renew our intentions, to find value and benefit in this gathering, and to be open to new awareness. So let's just take a moment, and may Allah flood us with the presence of angels to surround us and accept it as an act of worship. Welcome again, everybody who's just joining us. Welcome, Sister Fifi, Sister Amina, Sister Samina, Sister Sahara, Professor Alweya, Sister Erica, Dr. Sarah, Professor Isra, Sister Imran, Sister Salam, Sister Khitam, Sister Tasnia, Dr. Yamina, Shahrani family, Sister Maimuna, Sister Zahra, and Dr. Ziba. Again, welcome everybody, old friends, new friends, always friends.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
We will begin with Professor Isra. Professor Isra is a team member of Receiving Noor, our good friend and the engine behind Receiving Noor. She has had the privilege to study works of Said Nursi, Imam Said Nursi, with Dr. Yamina and Boginaya and Dr. Ali Murmur. Coming from a medical science background, she now teaches Islamic studies at a university and has a book on understanding miracle stories in the Quran. She also has a number of articles on Quran and contemporary Islamic theology. She's joining us from overseas where it's pretty late at night, and we appreciate her presence. Welcome, Professor Isra Yazigioglu. What is the exact title of your book, please?
Understanding the Quranic miracle stories in the modern age.
So check it out. This book is available on Amazon. Welcome, Professor Isra. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Maha and Dr. Yamina and everyone else who has been doing these seminars and supporting them, and definitely the hosting part as well. Jazakallah khair, everyone. I have a very brief thing to share, and I always have this tension, probably some other speakers might have this tension between lived reality and understood reality and the gap between the two. But so hopefully, and Maha's invitation was so loaded, from the heart, but not preachy, but profound and not too long. And may Allah grant blessings for all of us, inshallah. I wanted to talk very briefly about the idea of surrender, and this is a word that I wasn't comfortable with for a very long time. And I, just as a background, I grew up in a practicing family, and I became a religious girl, known in the family. She's so religious. She studies this and she reads this, and at some point even became the fatwa center. Could we do this? Could we do that? And so, but then I always felt something about this idea. I didn't think too much about it, but I was like, why is it Islam? Some other key word, but Islam, surrender, because surrender has this notion of, you're surrendering. You don't have agency anymore. It wasn't a conscious kind of struggle, but deep down, I didn't quite like that idea. And of course, it's a lot of things can be said on this, and Receiving Noor has, mashallah, Jazakallah khair, Yamina, for in discussing this idea with us in depth, and the practice of it, and so on. So a lot of Receiving Noor seminars and halakas have been around this. So I'm not going to go into depth, but just wanted to share that one thing that has happened in my experience, and this is just a moment. I'm not saying throughout my life or since that time, but just in that one moment, is about gratitude. So gratitude is in the Quran is a key, as you know, is key concept. And if you're grateful, we will increase, is a Quranic promise and an actual description of reality. As it is always said in Receiving Noor, when the Quran is stating something, it is not actually just talking about a future promise, but it's actually describing the way things are, right? If you're grateful, I shall certainly increase. And shakartum la'azidannakum, right? That Quranic declaration, it isn't just something that maybe in the future or is a promise. It is describing reality as it is, and we are here to confirm it. We can't just parrot it, but we are here to confirm it. we should be able to really see whether that's true in our lives. So now one struggle with the gratitude that I have sometimes is that it seems that, again, it's like surrender. It seems like you're settling with something, and I tend to be a very critical person. And when I enter a room, when I read a piece of work, when I listen to someone, even like it could be just a video that somebody shared, like I have this side in me that going, what could be wrong? What could be improved here? What's I have that critical. I tend to have that critical approach. So gratitude doesn't seem to sit well with it. Gratitude is like you're happy with it, you're content with it, you are grateful for it. And so for a very long time, I was very suspicious of this gratitude, even though, Yamina kept emphasizing and so on. And complaining, and why is complaining so attractive? To me, why is complaining and finding what is missing is so attractive? There can be a lot of reasons for it, personally or otherwise, but I think one of the piece is that it appears, and I want to say this without making it too attractive because it's attractive, not right, but I wanted to describe how it feels, and then it kind of to see how for a moment it got deconstructed almost like a breakthrough. So in the complaining, it appears to me that I feel alive. I feel a sense of agency, because you say, well, I'm not going to go with the flow. I'm not a leaf that's going to be, flown this way or that way in the wind. I'm going to resist. And there's a kind of a sense of agency when you're resisting and you're saying, no, this is not good. This is not good enough. I can see the holes here and I'm going to complain. I have grudges. I'm not that naive. I see that this is not good. And that sense of agency, I felt like sometimes makes me feel alive, like I'm alive. I'm not just going with the flow. I'm alive. And yet at the same time, if when I am in that space, it's painful because when you're constantly complaining and it's not good enough and it could have been better, I could have been better, this could, like that complaining can take different forms. Sometimes even it takes even the form of humility, right? I'm complaining because if I say I have the perfect house, what, I should be humble, and it can even come in the form of humility. So but then this idea of gratitude, that there's something in gratitude that will transform your life and so on. So this isn't something I could think and convince myself to, but when you try it out, that moment when I try it out and I choose to be grateful, it's like turning on, as Imam Nursi says, electric switch. It's a dark space and then you turn on the light and then it's just a new, you're in a new world. You're in the same place, but you're in a new world because now you have the light. So it had that kind of moment for me when I was grateful. And I remember Yamina saying, it's a choice to be grateful. It isn't about something outward that will happen to you and you will be grateful. It's a choice. And then I found myself in a space that's much more beautiful and not painful in the way the complaining was. And also it felt alive as well. So one of the things that was dragging my ego was, well, at least in complaining, I have agency. I'm criticizing, I'm saying no, I'm not going with the flow. So that gives you a sense of agency, as it were. But then I realized that in the act of choosing gratitude, yes, you are being content and it looks like you're going with the flow. And yet at the same time, it's actually a very freeing act of agency because you're making a choice. You could have complained, but you choose being grateful. And because it goes with with the way you're made, it really feels very good. And there was that moment when I realized that actually the event started becoming good. Even though rationally I was like, why would it change just because you're not complaining? But actually the event, the situation changed with the gratitude. And I have experienced this recently as well. So I just wanted to share this, and it's and if I wanted to kind of unpack why that's so, it's because it comes back again and again to the idea of being stuck in something that is passing, as opposed to opening yourself up to something enduring, something transcendent. And that happens with gratitude. And gratitude is not a gratitude, as you started saying, right? I mean, it's a gratitude to God. And who is this God? The one who creates everything and sustains everything at every moment. And with gratitude, that bridge, that connection to this being is incredibly freeing, because the whole world can come down. It could be doomsday, but you're related to the one who runs the doomsday, who runs every leaf and every atom. And it's extremely enriching, extremely freeing. And it doesn't compare to the tiny, teensy agency that comes with claiming or pretending to be independent and complaining. This just reminded me of a little metaphor that Imam Nursi gives. It says, the ego is like a little firefly. It lets everything in the darkness and then rejoices that it has a little light. What's the point of having that little light if you let the whole world and your loved ones in darkness, and yourself too? So turn it on, turn on the switch, let the world be light. And that switch, that turning on, goes through with giving up this false sense of agency, and then embracing the real agency, the choice to say, Alhamdulillah, I'm grateful that I've been chosen to be brought into existence. I'm grateful for this moment. And so, yeah, and then that connects back to Labbayk, that connects back to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam's journey in that moment of saying yes, and surrendering, even though he could have thought of a million things to complain about. Why this command at this point in my life, and so on. But that surrender and that gratitude opened him up to reconnecting with this infinite source. And it looks like he's giving up his agency when he's falls down and says, yes, I'm going to carry out this. But it's actually, it is an agency to be able to say that. So there's also this incredible choice that's happening. So it's not, you are not a baby who just goes with the flow. You are an adult and you're making a choice, and there's agency there. But the trick is, what the ego says is, you're stronger when you say no. And in the moments where I practice gratitude, there are moments where I see I can definitely complain about it. I'm really good about complaining, but if I choose gratitude, or when I choose prayer, like prayer also had been something that I struggled, because it always felt that doing something was more kind of effective than praying. And I even said, doing is a form of prayer anyway. But then there's that intimate moment where you say to your Rabb, I have no power. I need power. I need wisdom. I need your help. And to admit that, when those moments where you genuinely admit that, and not just mumble through some prayers, but actually genuinely admit that, it's an incredible sense of empowerment. And you let go of something little, but you gain infinity at that moment. So that's all. Jazakumullah khair, everyone.
جزانا وإياكم إسراء. ما شاء الله. Stay on with us. Don't go away. ما شاء الله. Thank you for this packed bullet. I'd like to recap what you said, and some, or at least some of what you said, one thing you said is that it appears that I feel alive, that I feel a sense of agency when I'm going to resist. I'm going to say no. I'm not naive. This sense of agency makes me feel alive, and I'm not gonna go with the flow. This is really relatable because this is happening every day on so many levels in our lives, especially on a collective level, on a social and cultural and political level, that the right thing to do is to say no and to resist and to have a spine and not to be a pawn of other systems and not to be enslaved by political rhetoric or your employer or even the dominant gender. By, you're not going to be used and surrender to hegemony. So this is what many of us have been exposed to and are exposed to and even espouse. But you clarified the difference. I mean, maybe we should stay with this for a moment. The clarification between who you're saying no to and about what. Because there is a fear and an anxiety about people who accept faith, quote unquote, to be surrendering to might, to anything and everything that might want to dominate or want to take over. Colonialism, ahlan wa sahlan, come on in. Capitalism, why not? Communism, despotic anything, yes, why not? Abusive husband, oh sure. Let's just be all, what's the word? No agency. Let's all accept whatever comes in the name of destiny and in the name of God's will. Does this happen? Yes, it happens. Is there a misconception about this? Absolutely. Are there oppressed, faithful people oppressed by other people? Yes. Is there cowardice? Yes. Are there people who could use some spine and some resistance against injustice? Yes. So whereas you are talking about transcendence, I'm going to ask you to clarify this a little bit. When you said when you make the connection to God, there is a bridge, even if it's doomsday, but you're connected to the creator of doomsday. Bridge to God, even if it's doomsday, you are related to the one who runs the doomsday, you said. So let us clarify this transcendence that you mentioned versus a lifestyle or a social ethics of collective surrender, not to God, but to authority, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it resonates with me because I've been for the last couple of weeks really on the news about Palestine and how many houses are being demolished today, how many people were arrested today, how many people have been injured or killed here. So, and the sense of, we're going to resist, we're going to try to fight this injustice, it's not right, and so on. So I've been also thinking about that for myself. Why am I so drawn into this? But one thing that made me pause, not pause in the sense of I'm not going to care, but pause in the sense of what will happen at the end. I mean, if you are in a particular situation or not, at the end of the day, if your work for justice isn't connected to something beyond, then there's so much energy that you need to put in, and by the time the justice you're waiting for comes, there won't be ever a closure, because you already lost, I don't know, thousands of people who died innocently, and thousands of people, children were inconvenienced by losing their homes. I mean, it doesn't have to be Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It could be any kind of conflict. And so that sense of, I asked myself the other day, I was like, what is it that I want out of this? What is it that would be kind of fulfilling? That and so so even in circumstances where it looks like we absolutely need to resist and we absolutely need to say no, if it is just stays there, saying no and yes in that context doesn't really ultimately make a difference, because even when people are saved from one tragedy, they have the other tragedy of life, tragedy of death. You know, the person who owns the house, who owns the land, or who doesn't own the land. It's not like anybody's staying here forever. Everybody's passing, and that tragedy of transience really pushes us to find something bigger. And so even when we reorient ourselves to what I try to say is transcendence, to this reality that sustains it all for a larger purpose, that eternal creator, our Rabb, then within that horizon, when we shift the horizon, then within saying no, there's a yes. I don't know if it's making sense, but you know, when I say no more weapons for destruction, no more weapons to apartheid, or you know, this injustice, we don't want any more weapons, we want to ban this, we want to boycott this. It's a way of saying no, but in that no there's a yes, and that's the yes. Yes, existence is purposeful. Yes, life is meaningful. Yes, that injustice endures beyond this passing justice. Yes, my sense of justice is coming from beyond, from the eternal one. And yes, this is a place of seeds. This isn't the place, the only place, or even the ultimate place. This is a place of seeds, that I'm actually planting seeds here. So it isn't about, I was able to listen part of yesterday's session where the sisters shared about the spider. It is about the spider. It's also not about the spider, right? I mean, that spider already has a very small lifespan anyway. So it is about the spider, but it's also not about the spider. It's about how you see that as a sign, and how that spider is a messenger and you are a messenger, and everything is actually, I know now I'm not necessarily, you know, able to say I live like this, but it makes a lot of sense to live in this way, to see that the things are not in themselves, but they are pointing to something, this eternal source of power and wisdom and so on. So that is an act of saying yes, and that is the yes we need. And then you will say no to this proposal, no to this. Other yeses and no's will come, but the larger existential yes has to be there. If that thing is no, if I am saying no in the sense of no, there is no meaning, there's something wrong in the way things are, then yeah, even the best case scenario doesn't really do justice, and ultimately the no becomes a zero at the end. But it does look like a lot like an agency, because there is an agency. You see, I wrote down here when I was taking notes, better than a baby, naive, right? I mean, a baby says yes, and that's one of the things that are, when you look at the baby, they're happy, they're content. If they are discomfort, they cry out, and then they get what they need, many times usually. And then they are attracted to this, they just go with it, they're attracted to this, they put this in their mouth. There's this kind of, joy and innocence in the baby, but at the same time, there's something that seems a bit naive about the baby. The baby doesn't understand that you can't just trust anything. You can't just put everything in your mouth. And they don't have, most importantly, that self-awareness that, I'm safe. The baby doesn't feel safe per se, because it doesn't really understand danger in the way you later on understand danger. So you need to come out of being baby and, and become a being that has a sense of self-consciousness and agency, not just something that goes with the flow. And yet, once you have the capacity to resist and say no, the best choice is to actually surrender and go with the flow. So we need that no, in a way, no, in the sense of this initial resistance, and that's in Prophet Adam and Adam's story, right? He's saying an initial no, to the command, and yet in that, you need to come out of that. There's a side in us that wants to stay in that no, in that existential no of separation. I'm independent from you, God. I'm a different being, and I will say no. That has to be transcended. That we have to go beyond that, because it's not where our real agency is. Our real agency is to recognize that I could say no, but the reality is coming from a source that is the one who gave me the capacity to say no, the one that gave me the little wisdom with which I weigh things out, that gave me my reality, my existence. So of course I'm going to say yes. And in Ibrahim alayhi salam's story, in a way, it's a yes story, right? I mean, he wants me to kill my child, it appears, right? I mean, of course, nobody's going to get this command. He's in a special situation as a prophet. And what Ibrahim alayhi salam is saying, yes, even if it's the death of my child, yes. And that's the same as the son, right? If God wants it, let's go ahead with it. Because this is a kind of the yes, meaning even if it looks bad, if it is from you, it can't be against me. How could it be against me? Because you are the one who made me. And you're the one who gave me the sense of saying no, which I need to utilize to be able to understand the yes, to be able to say yes consciously. So I need that little side in me that resists, every now and then. But I can't choose to nurture that, because that no, in the sense of saying no to the creator, no to the wisdom of life and creation, that is abtar, right? I mean, that has no, it's
connected limb connection.
It's broken. It's cut off. Yeah, and the kawthar is what we want. We want abundance, and so, and it says we gave you abundance in our kawthar, right? We gave you abundance, and that abundance is in recognizing that the one who gave me this sense of fulfillment, this search for goodness and justice, is the source of it all. So of course I'm going to say yes. And that's why when Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, he's told surrender, Aslam, and he says Aslamtu li Rabbil Alameen. He doesn't just say Aslamtu, he says Aslamtu li Rabbil Alameen. I surrender to the sustainer of everything. Because that's the only place you can surrender to. Anything less than that, you're a fool.
So that goes back to where Maha said people can or like deviate from I'm surrendering, I accept destiny, to accepting, saying yes to oppression and injustice and thing. Here, Ibrahim alayhi salam is clear about who he's surrendering to, Rabb al-Alameen. It means we have to have a sense who God is. Because if God is just, I have no idea, just like an intuition, because fitratan, we are created with a sense of there must be something That's something, we call it God, we call it Allah, we call it whatever your culture or your language. But unless we get to do the work and know God, and to know God as the Rabbul Alameen, as the creator of all things, I first have to know him as my Rabb. Ibrahim alayhi salam says, he's the one, when I get sick, he's the one who yashfeen, who heals me. He's the one who does this to me. Unless I have an intimate relationship with God as my Rabb, my sustainer, my host here and now, inside, I won't be really able to resonate with Rabbul Alameen, with God as the one who is almighty. But look, in the Quran, it's not might that is emphasized, it's rahmah that is. Rahmah is, like we talked yesterday about, the womb is compassion and love and care and mercy. Like when you're in the womb, it's nurturing and taking care of you. And so that's what's emphasized, because when I surrender, when we surrender, and this surrender is a process that's going to increase, the level is going to increase. I will surrender more and trust more to the extent that I get to know God as my Rabb, and therefore the Rabb of everything. The Rabb who is almighty, it means he has the might, the power to answer, to take care of my needs. And he is all generous, all compassionate. Compassion is extremely important. Then when I come back to the world with that awareness, with that way of being, now I am going, this is symbolized in the salat, in the prayer. I am going to be in prostration. I bow and prostrate before God, but I stand. I prostrate only to God. I bow down only to Rabbul Alameen. Anything else, they are all creatures equal to me. And we are told in the Quran that except from other human being, the whole creation is created to serve life, to serve our purpose in life. So we stand, Allahu Akbar, we stand. Allah is above everything, so I do not bow to anything. And that, from that stand, it's not a matter of resisting, it's a matter of I only bow to Rabbul Alameen. So I'm not going to bow to any oppression or any oppressor or anything. And that's why the no there, no to oppression, no to injustice, is a temporary no. We don't stay there forever. Why? Because we are now connected to the source of justice. So that no is a reminder that, no, I don't want this oppression, this injustice. What do I want? I want justice. And so I focus on how to bring justice, on the solution. And the solution is always going to be inspired through the source of justice and takes me back in gratitude to the source of justice. This is when we are aware of, we're talking here as worshippers of God who are striving and seeking to get closer to God, to live as worshippers. But even before we get to know God, even when we are in experiencing the world horizontally, still, if we stay in a resistance mode, no to this, no to that, we'll stay there forever because we're not looking for solutions. If we're complaining, and we talked yesterday about complaining and staying in a victim mode, it means we are not open to find solution. That's why even when we are not seeking lasting justice and lasting compassion and peace, someone who is standing for justice is much better than someone who is not taking a stand, or someone who is standing with oppression, or worse, oppressing others. Because when we stand for justice, and even when we are not aware of the source, then there is an openness, there is a potential openness to be in touch with the source of justice. And that's because when we say no to oppression and I long for justice, I want to work for justice, now I feel my need for justice. And if there is that leap of, I am humble enough, if there is enough humility to open the door a little bit that I need help, then when the door is open, then I am asking for help beyond myself. I'm aware of my helplessness, of my weakness, of my powerlessness. Then there is the potential to receive help. And there is also the willingness to ask questions. To ask for help means potential to receive help. And that's when we start getting in touch with the source, with God, with our Rabb.
So surrender is exclusive. Surrender is exclusive to God, and this requires a better knowledge, personal knowledge of God. So let's recap. First, welcome everybody who joined us. Later, Professor Isra Yasigoglu presented about her tension between lived reality versus knowledge, and the discomfort with the concept of surrender, and how she realized that previously, where it appeared to be giving up a sense of agency that made her feel alive and non-naive and more powerful, that in fact with surrender and with feeling and with practicing gratitude, it actually changed the experience and brought her to a bridge with God that transcended the situation. And she used the word, even if it's doomsday, if she's connected to the creator of doomsday, the one who's running doomsday, then that changes the whole scene. And we've been discussing the confusion between an attitude of surrender and lack of agency and cowardice against injustice versus what Dr. Yamina just clarified, and Isra, Professor Isra also clarified earlier, that there is, and you said it very well, there is a yes in the no, that when you say no to injustice, you're saying yes to the source of justice. So this is where the discussion is. Again, welcome everybody. Please unmute yourselves and turn your cameras on and present and ask your questions to Professor Isra Yasigoglu.
Just a point here about agency. To realize, to be aware that I am not the creating agent, does not mean that I don't take action. Because we talked about it yesterday. I start taking action in the name of God, Bismillah. It means I am aware that while I'm taking action, I'm guided to take action. I'm given the power, inspired, everything. Even life in me is being breathed into me right now. So that awareness is the huge difference, and that knowingness and the acknowledgement. And when I'm in that way of being, when I'm open to that awareness, then I am also open to receiving guidance while I'm taking the same action. I may also be inspired to do something differently or say it differently. It does not mean that now I am not agent, I'm sitting somewhere else. It just means that I'm aware that while I am doing something, I am not the creator or the co-creator, as we said yesterday.
I am aware that while I'm doing something, while I'm taking action, proper action, let us say, by way of example, against...
I am more likely, the more we nurture this awareness, we are more likely to act with wisdom, because we are not coming from a place of fear and anger, but from a place of This is what is required in the name of God, the just, the peace, so there is a calmness, there is wisdom, it's not against something, but for something. We are not in the resisting mode anymore. This is in alignment with justice, with peace. So we won't go and do the same thing. For instance, yesterday, something was shared about you're oppressed and then you become the oppressor because the oppressed can ascribe power to the oppressor. And at the first opportunity, when they get power, they become worse oppressors. And I remember I come from Algeria that's been colonized, and everything you know about the Holocaust, Algeria lived it much worse and for a long period of time, for 132 years, by the French. So during the last 8 years of the Federation, which the French name as war of resistance and rebellion and terrorism, but it was the native people standing against oppression and for freedom. As they say, the terrorist from one side could be the freedom seeker on the other side.
Freedom fighters.
The freedom fighters. So on that time, many Algerian people who were tortured. Torture was not only in prison or something. It was like they would come, the Marines would go into villages and torture people. It was like very widespread. Some of the French soldiers, who had authority, they learned some things from the Nazis. The Nazis didn't stay in France long, but look what they picked up. They picked up what they were subject to it, and they started using it. So it is maybe it's known something in psychology. It's a phenomenon when we can idolize the oppressor because we give him might. We see him as the power of the source of might. When we are in the ego mode of being ourselves, we see everything horizontally, and then take that and oppress others. At whatever might we have, we use it. It's like you see it also with a worker. If the boss bullies the worker bullies the ones that are below him. So this is, it means that even before we surrender consciously to God, our attitude matters. And the attitude that we are told in the Quran is arrogance versus humility. Arrogance in Arabic is ghurur, is also deceit, deceiving ourselves, like thinking that you are more than, not being aware. So the surrender, when Maha, you were saying, so it's exclusive to God. Yes, but before we know God, surrender means accepting the reality of who we are. It means we are helpless. We don't have power. We are not the source of anything. We need help. We need this. When we accept this, that's when the door is open. Now we can start feeling the need for guidance, feeling the need for someone somewhere needs to help me. Who is it? Who is putting me? That's when the journey starts. But if someone's heart is closed, if it's hard, if it's inclined to oppression, then that person is unlikely. It's like the door is locked, unlikely to receive the guidance or to act, to be able to surrender to God. It will take it takes that opening of the door, opening of the heart. So that's about agency.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina, and thank you, Professor Isra. We'd love to have you stay on, but since it's very late there, I just want to say thank you for this provocative topic, and everybody's welcome before Isra goes to sleep or falls asleep. It's like 2 a.m. there. Please direct your questions or comments to her. Do you have issues with surrender or with the notion of gratitude, that it's naive and baby-like and kind of silly? What is your experience with this? I appreciate Isra's candid and honest presentation like that. I share a lot. I mean, it's very relatable, Isra. Sarah, please go ahead. Dr. Sarah Lalim.
MashaAllah, before you go to sleep, Isra, inshallah, blessed rest for you. Jazakallah khair for staying awake with us. I felt my heart was filled with like prayers for Isra to sleep, because I know how late it is. So I just wanted to say I loved the, thank you for sharing this beautiful metaphor of the abundance and the rivers and connecting that to the source. So we know in the Quran, there's this constant reminder of abundance, rivers flowing, abundance. And I just felt this almost like when we resist, it's like resisting this flow of abundance that's already flowing. And we're trying, it's like going against something that's already flowing. And so when we do choose surrender, and I love how you linked it to gratitude, I loved the visual. I know Dr. Agat loves the visuals as well, but the visual of the source flowing through me in that way of the abundant rivers of doing. So Jazakallah khair, that will definitely stay with me, because I definitely feel when I'm in a resistance mode, it's like blocking a flow. It just feels like extreme pressure. So Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Sarah. Inaba, Shahrani family, please go ahead.
Also repeating gratitude for your presentation, Isra Jan. Thank you so much. And I have found the same thing in my own path, that I thought that having an intention was like irrelevant, powerless, such a small thing, until I realized that my intention is actually, how I know myself, and knowing, connecting to who God wants me to be here, and who I am discovering that I am here in this existence. So this is when I had this discovery about how powerful an intention is, and how much it tells you about who you are to your Lord, who I am to my loving sustainer, then I found joy and love for having an intention itself. And I love to use my intention nowadays. I love to choose to intend to witness Ya Shakur. Once I realized that this was something that he had given me, it's like, I want to be very aware of it and enjoy using it. And then I also wanted to ask for group prayers for Sister Sana. Her son may also be undergoing a surgery. This is another sister whose son may also be undergoing a surgery tomorrow morning. Her name is Sana. She joins us sometimes.
Okay, let's take a moment and pray for healing and complete recovery and wellness to Sister Sana, her son, and their family. We can do it quietly in a minute. I mean, take a minute to do it. Ameen. Thank you, Sister Inaba. There is a question, Isra, about could you clarify the metaphor of the firefly?
Maha.
Yes.
There are hundreds of people who are imprisoned in Algeria being tortured for political opinions. And I'm sure I'm aware of them because I'm from there. I'm sure there are many all over the world, so we can pray for them too. Because when I was praying for this sister, I was reminded of all that need prayer, and they are there only because they are asking for justice.
Yes. So subhanallah, this is a topic that really is important, because some people get confused. I personally, Dr. Yamina, in my daily istawda', when I entrust myself and my kids and my loved ones to Rabb al-Alameen, to the hands of God, I include the oppressed, the imprisoned, the forgotten. But if you would like to lead us into a dua, a collective dua as well, because our brothers and sisters who are in prison, they become invisible. I mean, most of them don't get a court trial. It's a military trial. They don't get they don't get legal representation. So
in Nigeria, even now, lawyers who are represent volunteers are being put in prison. And right. In Nigeria, you don't have to go to prison to be tortured. In the police station,
So could you kindly lead us in a collective prayer?
Everyone, it's about the niyyah. I will only say, فَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. This rahmah, this want for justice and for is coming from him. And so we are giving all these people that we cannot help directly to his protection, inshallah.
وَنَعْمَ بِاللَّهِ اللهم آمين. Isra, would you like to clarify the metaphor of the firefly?
I mean, going back to the context that Imam Nursi uses, it's actually, it's related, it's about love. And in that context, he's talking about love for the self, for, we can call it ego as well. We love ourselves in the ego mode. Ultimately, we only love ourselves, and we only love other things to the extent that it benefits this self. This gives me joy, this gives me attention, this gives me benefits, whatever, but ultimately you only love yourself. So he's trying to kind of convince that mode, saying, look, even if you love yourself, because through your own self you experience pleasure and connection, if you stay there, you're like a firefly that has some light, but then firefly's light comes on when everything is dark. It's just a metaphor, of course. So then if you say, I'm content with just me pretending to be independent and loving myself as the ultimate thing, it gives you a sense of light, it gives you a sense of something, but then everything else is in the darkness. Whereas when you surrender, saying that, look, he says, even if you love yourself as of course I love myself, because through myself I experience life and connections and everything. So of course I'm going to love myself first and foremost. Even if you start there, you need to realize that, well, if I love myself so much, then I must love the one who gives me this beloved, right? I didn't make myself, I'm not sustaining myself. So if I love myself so much, I must love the one who made this thing. I didn't make myself. So then it kind of switches back into, you're going to let go of your false sense of independence. So kind of the firefly is sort of saying, I enjoy being in the dark because I get to have little agency, little something for myself. But turn on the lights and everything else is also in light. So even if you love your little light, where you see a bit of life, a bit of agency when you say no, also, there's a sense of agency, like, yeah, I'm alive, I'm able to, I'm not going with the flow, I can resist. So there is a sense of agency there. If you love that sense of agency, then find the one that gives agency to everything and source of real agency, and in that sense of surrendering to that source of agency is the agency, right? Is your real agency, to surrender to this real agent. So then you are not like a little firefly, wants everything to be dark so it can shine a little bit. You are like the firefly who chose to live in a place of light. It's as a metaphor, I guess.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Isra. So we will move on now to Dr. Yamina, unless anybody else would like a last comment or question. Jazakallah khair. More to discuss more and more. This is a very rich topic that will need to be revisited as we question our own attitudes about agency and about the lived experiences, the lived experience versus the known experience or the knowledge-based experience. Thank you. Now, Dr. Yamina Buganaya, my good friend and the director of Receiving Noor. She considers herself as a life student of the Quran. We consider her as a scholar of the Quran. Receiving Noor is a nonprofit educational organization dedicated to empowerment and enrichment through Quranic spirituality. Yamina transitioned from her position as Associate Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies at Carthage College in Swarthmore in order to commit to this project of creating Receiving Noor. And it's been now 10 years in existence or so. In addition to extensive training in Islamic studies, both in traditional and academic settings, Yamina also holds a PhD in theoretical quantum physics. She has published extensively in several languages on Islam, especially on Quranic studies, Islamic spirituality, and the relationship between religion and science. As part of her current position, she has been offering online Quranic classes as well as intensive Quran workshops and spiritual retreats. She's authored 2 books. One is called Living with Genuine Tawheed, and there has been book clubs about it. And the most recent book is Living the Quran with Joy and Purpose, co-authored with Professor Isra Yassijoglu. Welcome, Dr. Yamina.
Thank you, Maha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So I think it was about transience, right? Remember the title? Yeah, understanding the transience of everything. So it reminded me that we discussed this with Maha before, and I was saying what would happen, like if we stop and reflect, what if the world is transient? What if life is temporary? What if death is the end? What if we won't be here tomorrow? And you are welcome to say whatever, if it brings anything into you, if you have any thing to share at this point, please go ahead. Share it. What if the world is transient?
What if we won't be here tomorrow? What if everything ends?
Because, we talk about this friend or this relative has been diagnosed with a life-threatening situation or terminal illness, but What if we are all terminal? Yes, please.
If that were the case, like if it was going to end all tonight, I would want to know the meaning right here, right now. Why am I here?
Inaba, Sister Inaba, you said if this were the case, then you'd want to know the meaning of what? Right here, right now.
I want to know the meaning of why I am here. This is all going away, yet it happened. So why has it happened? That, I mean, this is, it's the meaning. It's ultimately meaning. Even like, yes, there's the losing of the things that I love and the things that I like and the things that were nice to know. But even beyond that, if I have to cut to the chase, if this is going to end in 3 seconds from now, I want to know the meaning.
Because if it's meaningless, even if I have everything, we don't have to actually go through the experience. We can imagine it. If everything is meaningless, then what's the point? That's why slowing down, pausing, reflecting is so crucial. That's why the Prophet ﷺ says, reflecting for an hour is better than worshipping for a year and another for 60 years in a lifetime. Because the more we reflect, the more the quality of our life and the worshipping in our life, and everything is supposed to be a form of worship, will change. So, Maha, I think what you shared with me was shared with you. So we got like realizing the impermanence of everything can produce anxiety to the point of paralysis. For example, and actually, let's note here, that's exactly why we don't pause and reflect. Because of the anxiety is so much that we don't want to bear it, and so we avoid it. However, when it's like surgery, it's like they tell it, like gangrene. If you don't have it cleaned, then that limb eventually will be totally cut off, because that will eat us up. It will eat the heart and the soul and up. So when usually what we do, because it gives us that anxiety, we run away. However, it's when we stop and, like Inaba just shared, what is the meaning of this? Asking questions, I mean, real, true questions, will open the door. So it was like, for example, what Maha shared with me was, how would you live in a house knowing you can be evicted anytime? Now, note in each sentence, there is a door, a window onto something beyond, because it's how we feel it. So, and it's related to yesterday. You know, there is a choice when we find ourselves in pain, when we are suffering, when there is fear or anger or anxiety, there is always at the same time hope, or a feeling of this shouldn't be like this, an objection. And usually we take that objection and hold on to it, and we don't see beyond it. We hold on to it and we stay there, and that's it. Like, why is it happening? If a part of me is saying, why is it happening? It means it's looking for meaning. And also it's saying there should be something else here. There should be another way too. It can't be just this. So if I'm living in this house and I have a sense of, actually there is another, it says, who wants to love knowing that the beloved is going to disappear any moment? So it is true, if we are living in this home and we are attached to it, we love it somehow. If we love our beloveds, it could be people and other things, it means we have to imagine some endurance in order to love them and to stay in that house and to, forget about the transience. But the fact is that it is transient. We know it is transient. We know that anytime anything can happen. I know anytime I can leave this world. So this paradox is actually what is going to propel us towards something beyond. Since love exists, since my desire to live in this house in peace, not with the anxiety that anytime I could be thrown out, since these feelings are real, they exist in me, and since there will be no love, if we focus on everything is passing, 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 we won't love anything, would we? We won't be able to get attached. Since there is love, since there is attachment, since I have that sense of peace of living in my house, I have a sense of endurance, then there must be endurance. And that's we said yesterday, is instead of holding on to transience and being anxious or avoiding transience, and deep down, lots of psychologists say that all the fears that we have, at the bottom underneath them is the fear of death, the fear of disappearing. Instead of living with that, there is a third option. It's not either I accept, I face, confront transience, and then I will be, it's not possible to live a stable life, or I totally ignore it as if it doesn't exist, and then I live with this buried fears and anxieties within me that will show themselves in many different occasions in life. And I never feel that deep inner peace. The third way is, it is a fact that there is love and attachment. It is a need for peace and stability. And it is a fact that is transience. How could these two exist together? And that's when we start asking, if the focus starts changing, there must be endurance. If I have a sense of endurance, it means there must be endurance. And that's when I start asking, instead of my focus being focused on things leaving, I will start asking, where are they coming from? They are leaving, then I focus the flow. We talked about this before with the windows. There is a flow. This flow is, everything is leaving, but lo and behold, I have disregarded something very important. This flow is flowing from somewhere. There is a source of being where everything is coming from. And then our focus will be on where things are coming from, and not just they are disappearing and dying. So death becomes the mirror to life. Disappearance becomes the mirror to, or the reminder to appearing. Things are coming into existence. They are brought into existence. They are sustained into existence. And then it's not either or, there is something beyond. All of them, the relationship between this and the pain and the anxiety that I feel when I experience transience, itself is a reminder that in me, I have the desire for enduring love, enduring anything and lastingness, anything we value and appreciate. And that's when we start looking for the source, and we at least in the beginning we intuit, we feel that there is a source, an enduring source, and there is this unending flow from this source, and the flow is an area, is an indication. So the reactions were, how would we live in a house knowing we can be evicted anytime? Why would we invest in any public bus or train when we're only a temporary passenger? Who wants to love knowing that the beloved is going to disappear any moment? Why engage in agriculture or architecture or long-term plans? Why get into wars if everything is passing anyways? Why get married or have children when all is dying any minute? Why have inheritance laws? Why is the purpose of creating, what's the purpose of creating cultures, institutions of education? It's if we may not be, I think there is something missing there. We're not existing tomorrow. So all this, can you see that we do these things? We build houses. We forge long-term relationships. We have long-term projects. We have those hopes. We have those desires. So that's also a reality effect we find ourselves. Yet, there is something that we usually forget about, which is the transience part. And it is totally, life is temporary. Death is the end of everything. What we see in the sky at night, the stars we see have already died a long time ago. And tomorrow I may not be here. I don't know. And if I know, if I feel it, it's only when I am inspired and made to feel it. So we have these two realities, and these two realities together, they point to something beyond. And that's what makes us focus on things are coming from somewhere. That somewhere is an unending source. It's an enduring, lasting source of all things that we witness here. And that's why we say, Inna lillahi, we belong to God, wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and we are in a state of returning to Him. So we need to first realize that we are coming from Him. We belong to Him. Otherwise, we will be only focused on it's leaving. Yes, it's leaving, but it means it's coming. It's coming from somewhere. And that will change our attitude. And this is very important. Not only because we will realize how transience is actually a window onto endurance, a window onto eternity, but also we will realize that how we see the world is totally related to our attitude. If I'm focusing on what is leaving, on death, I see what is leaving. And in order to avoid it, I totally ignore it as if it's not part of my reality. And when I do that, I cannot find eternity through transience. I cannot celebrate eternity as that transience, that flow that reminds me of the source it's coming from. And I miss on my soul connection to transience and endurance that we long so much for. So the shift from non-existence and death to the source of existence and life is very important, and it is related to how I view myself. So far, is it okay?
Let's hear from people. We've had several people join us, about a dozen people join us. So feel free to unmute yourselves, and if you want, turn your cameras on and engage with these sets of questions and Dr. Yamina's fascinating comment about it's in this paradox that there is an answer.
And it's directly related to what we said yesterday as well. Like, yes, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. It's very interesting what you are discussing. Alhamdulillah, I was satisfied with all these topics. But for me, as a believer, I know I am in this space-time context or world. It's a place of the exam. It will finish. This moment, this is the place where the exam take place. هذا مكان الامتحان يعني هذا كل شيء أعيشه الامتحان. I focus on the how to answer the exam. I'm not focusing on okay, yes, when we are in exam, we focus on questions and answers and also period of time. There is 2 hours, for example, an exam, I have to do it. And this is what is important for me. I focus how to answer the best I can, how I use all my potential to be that good person at the end. So I'm not focusing on when to die, or I focus just like, if, as you said, if you have 2 hours to live, what you will do. I do what I can. Every time I am in my mind, I have to do the best. I have to be the best. If I die today, I die with this idea to be the best. When I pray my Fajr time, this is a new day. I want to be the best Muslim I can. If I die today, I die with this niyyah, this intention. That's what I focus on.
This is that's totally correct. No question about that. No problem with that. Now we are talking about something a little different.
Yes, that's what I want to understand. Exactly, yes.
We want to forge a more conscious relationship with who we are and discover the ubudiyya. And through the ubudiyya, because we cannot know God as our Rabb except through the mirror of our own ubudiyya. So how much we know God, we are going to surrender and trust him, make tawakkul. However, we can know him more. There is al-muqarrabun, those you get closer and closer to God when you know him more and more. And you know him more and more when we get in touch with our ubudiyya, which means our ajz and faqr, with our needs and our not only we have needs, but we also don't have the power to take care of them. Only then I start becoming the witness, shahada. I make the shahada that right here and now, for instance, something that we don't think much about is breathing. Right now, I am not the agent in the breathing. I am made to breathe. I find myself breathing. So I realize that someone is sustaining qayyumiyya, sustaining my and rububiyya, sustaining my breathing. I am made to breathe. So whoever is making me breathe is the one who makes you breathe, who makes everything breathe. So now I know my Rabb in a new way. Just like that way, for instance, seeing everything. I feel like I'm seeing. Usually I think I'm seeing, but if I stop and see, I say, it's not under my control. Someone is making me see. Then I start getting a glimpse, a taste of what basir is, right? So here, we have a sense of, for instance, everyone is sitting in a room or somewhere now, right now. Do you feel in your house the same as when you are in a hotel? When we are in a hotel, when we enter, for instance, I'm making up now something just to clarify. I may notice, oh, this color is not nice. I don't like it. Okay? I don't like this color. It's too dark. And this and that. I don't like how they I may pull a chair or something, but I'm not going to change the position of the bed. I'm not going to paint. Why? Because I'm staying here 2-3 nights. And even daytime, I'm not going to sit there, right? When I go to my home, it's not the same. Why? I start making projects. Painting is the easiest, I start with that. After a while, we say, let's make a door here, let's close here, let's change the window, the kitchen here. Why? Because at home, in that home, I feel a sense of lastingness. I'm staying here for a long time. At the same time, don't we know that this dunya is fani, that everything is transient? How come we can have that peace as if we are not going to die when the fact is we don't know when we're going to die? These two things, usually either we don't think about that anything can happen anytime, or usually that's what we do, because if you start focusing on transience, it can be delivered, you can go mad. I am saying that this is also the sense that there is transience, everything is passing, yet we have this sense of lastingness in our home, with our children, with our family, with our beloved ones, with our work, with our studies. We don't go and do it as if we're going to die. That sense that is contradicting the reality is the two of them together. When I think that I may die tomorrow, it gives me that, what's going on now? So what about this? What about my child? Who is going to take care of it? And things. All those are pointing to something beyond. They are an ayah, a reminder telling me that, you see, you've been given a sense of lastingness. It means there is a source of lastingness. And then I say, because you have hope that, yes, I will
and
take.
we have Iman also, because Islam.
This is going to increase my Iman. Let's not look, when we take Iman always for granted and say, because of Iman, I will go do this, then at the end, it's going to be taqleed, and our Iman is not going to grow. But that's why I said at the very beginning, the first session is honesty, honesty, honesty. Integrity means honesty. I find this in myself, and that's why we make tadarru', we pray to God. So when I have that sense and I present it to, even if I don't know God yet with all his names or profoundly, whatever that sense I have, it's going to be deeper now. This situation, ما خلقت هذا باطل. This, what I am living, this being discomfortable, having fear. What about if I have a baby, let's say? Imagine you have a baby who is going to stay and I die, and who is going to take care of it? The rahmah that we have in us will also bring the opposite, which I will be anxious about what will happen. If I did not have that anxiety, I wouldn't ask for help from Allah. I wouldn't know who I am as helpless. I would not experience taste the help and the rububiyyah when it comes, the rahmah when it comes. And I would not, when I'm asking for help there, I'll also find there is a hope in me, a hope that either I will die when the child is older, or the child, let's say I know there is an illness or something, or that child will be gifted with someone who will really be good to him, just like a mother. All that is hope. So I can cling on hope and I can cling on fear. When I cling on fear, I cannot get closer to God. But when I cling on the hope that comes together with the fear, when I use it as a door to ask for help, when I accept with humility that I cannot control, my life is not under my control, then I am more likely to truly experience and appreciate how help is really tastes so good, how that rahmah, how much I need it, how much it's something beautiful. And that's when I get really intimate and closer to God, and my iman increases, and my tawakkul increases, and my surrender increases. I cannot keep using the old one, because it would be, in a sense, as if what I'm living right now is irrelevant. كأنه خلق باطلا. And we say, ما خلقت هذا باطلا. You have not created this without meaning, without purpose, just that in vain. So every creation, and we cannot run away from our fears and discomfort and say, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe He will take care of me. I am forcing it. I am not letting that event, what is happening, speaking. I'm saying you are something bad. I don't want you. I'm forgetting. I close my eyes to it, and I said, I'm a believer in God. And yes, God is speaking to me through this. So I need to listen to it. And lo and behold, I realized that it is an ayah. It is a harbinger to eternal life. Death is a harbinger to, it's an ayah. It's speaking about God. It's speaking about an enduring source that life is coming through it, then we start seeing that, oh yes, He's come.
That is a what?
Is a harbinger to eternal life. It's an ayah. Mm-hmm. It exists together. Actually, once we find the eternal source of life, then if I know that I'm dying tomorrow, today will become, I won't waste it here and there, will be more present. If you have a child, you will be more present, you will be more loving, you will, it will intensifies life, actually, our experience of life. So that's what we're talking about.
Okay. يعني في الفقد عين الإيمان. يعني everything is going. I can lose. That is the moment the Iman grow. That is the moment. I think Allah give us this. I get you. Yeah.
But I cannot keep using yesterday's Iman for now and not get anything from now as if it was created batila, without any meaning. No, everything will increase. Everything, and it will increase what I knew before. It doesn't mean it negates it, but I can't keep using yesterday. Does it mean that today has no meaning?
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. So when we do that, then we become open to receive divine guidance, because we are open to ask for help. We're willing to choose hope over fear, because hope and fear, whenever there is fear, we also have a sense that it shouldn't be like this. There should be something. That should be something is real too. That was what Faraz shared with us yesterday. Like that also, why is that not, that hope is real too? And when we are willing to choose hope over fear, because deep down in our soul, in our heart, we feel that there is more to life, that there is more to this situation, because part of us is not willing to settle with it. So when we are willing to pursue that hope, we become open to transform, so that the pain of transience, the pain of what we think, what we imagine in the beginning to be annihilation, the pain of losing everything, especially things that matters to us, become harbingers to lastingness. They remind us of that they came from somewhere, and they remind us of the source. And it's how it's supposed to be. If that's how it's supposed to be, then why would it cause pain? Why do we have pain? The pain is telling us you forgot about the source. So it's speaking as well. It is an ayah as well. It's a messenger as well. And so yesterday, when Faraz shared his experience, and I'm sure many of us, that's in the beginning, we kind of sporadically find ourselves in that situation where we are open, we are willing to choose hope, and sometimes we hold on to the fear, and we could be paralyzed by the fear. And what we do at Receiving Nur is to learn to be open intentionally and systematically, rather than randomly from time to time, sporadically. We learn to nurture that openness, that intentional openness, that so that we will start seeing things for what they are, yet speaking about their source, speaking about the maker, speaking about and making the beautiful names of God known to us, and testifying, making shahada. And when we become aware of that, we can make the shahada. And they are glorifying, and we start glorifying God together with them by means of that situation. So yesterday we were talking with Maha as well, and it's something that I always say. It's like emotional and spiritual healing, and especially Iman work, is like holistic medicine. You need to address the root of the illness. Here, the illness is the ghafla. So the ghafla and there is something under ghafla, I'll come back to it, which is that ego that Isra shared, that wants to hold on to its agency. It wants to hold on its false claim to exist on its own, to do things, to be in control. That's why the door opens when there is a situation when we let go of those false claims and we say, I need help. And that's when. But we want to do this automatically all the time. Make tarbiyah. That no false claims. I'm not the agent anytime. Even when I'm acting, I'm doing things, they are being done unto me. I am witnessing that I'm helping someone, and I'm witnessing that بحق اليقين, through my own self, that he is the helper. Because I found in myself the urge to help. I found in myself that sense for justice, for compassion. I did not get them from anywhere. I am not the source. I just suddenly, I found them in myself. So I witnessed that, and I say, La mu'ina illallah. There is no helper but. So I help in his name. We talked only a little bit about it yesterday, but it's something that we've been talking about for years in Receiving Nur. When I help with this awareness, with this consciousness, I give in his name, not in my name. In my name means I am in that interval, I am in ghafla. I say, God gave me this, and I'm sharing it with you. No, gave me this, and gave me the hand to give it, and gave me the feeling to give it. What is me doing there? Nothing. Bismillah. It's all you are, the helper, the giver, the gifter, the everything, and I am the witnesser. And that giving becomes truly worship, ibadah, and it brings the good news, bushra, healing and good news. Why? Because tomorrow, how do I know I want to need the help? He's the helper. I won't be like looking, would this friend help me or not? And I don't like her helping me. He's the helper. Just like I helped someone I didn't even know I was made to help them, unbeknown to me. I was urged to help. It could be a person, it could be some situation. He is the helper. He is the source of help. So this work, this healing, is like holistic medicine. It involves change in lifestyle, change in the way we think. That's what the tarbiyah of the Quran is about. It teaches us how to ask questions, how to think. And once we start seeing, perceiving things in a particular way, we start truly seeing the transience doesn't give us fear, doesn't scare us anymore, because it's the flow of life. It's the ayat that are speaking to us in the name of God. They are glorifying. So we are not concerned about, oh, they are leaving. We are concerned about what's coming new. It changes everything. How we perceive that perspective changes first. When we are the ego is the center, everything becomes like a bubble. And I see everything in the mirror of the eye. However much my mirror is distorted, it will distort what I see. But when we get this perspective outside the eye becomes a unit of measurement of Asma al-Husna. When I help, he's the helper. When I see, he's the seer. When I breathe, he's the giver of life. Then from that perspective, I start seeing things as they are, as ayat. And then events will start speaking to me of wisdom. This is a change in lifestyle. This is a change in thinking, in perception. And then the emotions will change accordingly. It's like a diet. You change everything. And then you get used to the new one. And we can't keep eating junk, shirki thoughts, false beliefs that we never questioned, and then expect to heal with tawheed while taking some magic pill. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Have you witnessed La ilaha illallah? When I say it, it's supposed to remind me the meaning. But if I experience nothing, and I kept saying, said it, I don't know how many times, nothing changed. Yeah, because you don't know what you're saying.
Then that is the meaning of ahsaha. What you are saying, that's a real ihsa.
Yeah, it's not a grammatical meaning like translation. No, what it means in your heart, in your soul.
Exactly. How do you feel? How do you become as a human being? Are you a real servant to Allah, or just you are talking? Yeah, that feeling. The feeling is very important. It's a question of thinking and tafakkur and tadabbur and all this.
Dr. Yamina, could you repeat the phrase of the eye being blurry? It affects how we see the world?
I think I was saying, like, when we live in an eye-centered world, then we live in a bubble of false beliefs, illusions. The main illusion that will be the premise underlying everything is I exist on my own, and that is going to project on everything. I will have to, if I exist on my own, it means you exist on your own, it means everything else exists on their own. And in that, from that perspective, I cannot see things as they are, because I'm already distorting them with my inner distortions, with my inner false assumptions and beliefs. And when we go out of that, and we talked about it yesterday, we said when we are in ego, we are not open to question our life choices and the consequences. And we don't take responsibility because we are not even open to the possibility that I could be doing something wrong. I don't question any belief, any assumption. The door is locked there. Sometimes it's closed. It's the more stubbornness, the more it's locked. But when we're willing to open the door just a little, then the light starts to seep in. We're willing to question ourselves. The more we question ourselves, the more that bubble starts disappearing. And when we actually live consciously and constantly in that assumption that we do not exist on our own. I am being sustained here and now. Therefore, everything I see them are being sustained. They start speaking as to me, they start testifying to La ilaha illallah. They glorify God with his beautiful names. When I am in that situation, I become aware when I go back into false assumptions. And very quickly, with istighfar, I go back. But the very beginning happens sporadically from time to time. We want to make that a conscious, intentional way of being, living not in ego-based, I-centered bubble of false illusions, false beliefs, false assumptions, but taking that leap of faith in the hope we find something beyond, some help beyond. Instead of holding on to despair, for instance, we said we hold on to hope and the possibility of receiving answers. And we become, that's when we are open to receiving guidance, because when we think we know, when it feels that everything is fine, I am not open to receiving any guidance. Even if I repeat it by heart, it doesn't get into the heart of the soul, because I don't act with it. If I never question my belief, my assumptions about life, then how, I think that's what we said yesterday, how can we be ready to check our assumptions against the instructions, the guidelines, the map that the Quran offers us, that divine guidance is. So why is this all? Is that, can I just carry on, or is it?
Yes, you can either carry on, or we can ask Sister Zahra to read us through the chat. What do you prefer?
As you want.
So please carry on, and then we will go through the chat.
Okay. So this is all, I was saying it's important, because whether we're aware of it or not, we see the world and we experience life in the mirror of ourselves. However we experience ourselves, we start experiencing the world. When we identify with the ego here, I'm not talking about being selfish or unkind. You can be very kind and still live in that ego-centered, I-centered world. It means it's in a state of unconsciousness, of mindlessness, of ghafla, not aware of the connection with that I am being sustained here and now. That's what I mean by ego. Then our perception of ourselves and of reality is distorted, because I'm seeing myself as an agent, a creative, or at least co-creative creator agent. Everything else becomes creators or co-creators. That's what we talked about in the last seminars. We are making things into idols. And when we are in that state, yesterday we said we feel like a victim, because it feels like my wishes, my desires, my needs need to be fulfilled. When they are fulfilled, I'm happy. This is how it should be. When they are not, I'm unhappy, dissatisfied. Why me? Why? It happens only to me. Life is unjust, cruel. There is fear and despair. But with that despair comes the hope, and the hope is the openness. We will talk maybe more about that when we talk about forging habits. So if we want to practice the Shahada, to testify that there is no creator except one, and therefore smash the idols, not only out there, but inside as well, and testify to the reality of Tawheed, then we need to become conscious of the false claims of the ego. That's why we need to become aware of the assumptions, the beliefs underlying our fears, our anxiety, anything that we dislike, because when we are happy, we are not in a mode to do it. Actually, what we need to do is reflect all the time. So when there is a crisis, we are already trained. Then when we question and we find out that these assumptions and beliefs are false, then we can refute them and replace them with the teaching of the Quran that we are also going to, check out against our assumptions and against the reality in life. For instance, it seems like life is mine, I do whatever I want, and I am told, no, you have a Rabb, life is a gift to you, and this is, you have to surrender it. It's a trust that needs to be surrendered back. And I say, is it true? And lo and behold, I find out that truly life is not mine. And yes, I have a need for things to be in control, but I am not the one in control. Someone else is in control. So I start seeking that source of control. Then we start living from the heart and the soul. And only then, only from the heart and the soul, can we truly smash the idol. I cannot be in the ego itself being an idol and making things into idols. It's an illusion anyway, because idols are not real things there. And smash the idols. In order to smash the idols, I have to smash the illusions that they are idols, because they are not idols. They are speaking of God, they are reminding of God, they are mirroring the beautiful names of their maker. So I cannot stay there and live Tawheed. That's why I said it's like holistic medicine. And that's why sometimes our discussions don't go anywhere, because we ask questions while standing in the ego. While standing in Ghafla, I say, why is it happening like this? Why is you saying you're smashing the idols? They are, how do I smash? You don't smash anything out there, you smash it inside. We let go of our illusion about it. I say this assumption, this belief that my life is mine, that I exist independently on my own like this, is false. Therefore, nothing out there exists on their own. That's it. I smashed one idol, for instance. It happens inside. It happens when we start living from the soul. Only then we can smash idols inward, inside and outside. And then we can read the ayat. Only then can we read the ayat. Can't be in the ego and read the ayat. I'm making this clear so that if you think how come I'm not reading the ayat? Well, what we learn, the instructions and the teaching will only apply when I change my attitude. If I don't change my attitude, it's like, let's say the instructions are like a scenery. And I say, I don't see a scenery because I have something on my eyes. You say, yes, there is a scenery, it's there, we got it ready, but you can only benefit from it if you open your eyes, if you take off whatever is on your eyes. Does it make sense? Whatever is on our eyes is the ego's false beliefs, those illusions and delusions that we talked about when we talked about shirk.
Like the lens or the
exactly
eyeglasses we put on.
Yes, and they distort things. And I say, I'm looking, either I don't see anything or I see them, but they look very ugly. Are you sure? Maybe it's you're wearing something that's distorting everything. Or you're saying everything is white, but I see them all gray. Maybe you're wearing gray lenses. And not maybe, you are. Here it starts all inside. We can only read the eyes when we live in the soul. Don't get scared. This is not like 24/7, I will be there suddenly. No, but in the beginning, I will dwell there short moments of time, and I will experience this clarity. And now I learn, the more I find myself in that, and then back into the ego, and then back to the ego. But then I learn how to get there. It becomes easier and easier. And when I'm in the ego, I feel the stress. I feel, it doesn't feel light, it feels burdenous. And now I have experienced living outside the ego, living, identifying with the soul. So it becomes easy for me to be motivated to let go of those false beliefs and go back, confirm the reality of Tawheed and live from the soul, until living from the soul becomes more and more familiar. That's what we did last year with Astaghfirullah. But I'm making it more like to see I'm going from one state of being to another. Otherwise, we cannot apply what we are learning. No wonder if you think how come it's not happening? There is something. The key is first, you need to question and refute at least one by one, not all of them at once, but for instance, false assumptions. And then the light within there and the beautiful names within there will show themselves. Then we start reading the ayat and we can know our Rabb, our sustainer. Our Rabb is the Rabb of all things, not the other way around. In the beginning, we get evidences that he is the Rabb of everything, but it does not resonate until we complete the cycle within us and surrender. That yes, surrender to the reality that yes, right now I am being sustained. It's not me who is speaking. It's not me who is seeing. It's not me who is breathing. It's not me who is keeping myself in life. That's all. When we are in ghafla, we don't claim that this is it, but we assume them and live accordingly. They are assumptions. They are underlying beliefs that need, when we become aware of them, they are refuted, because it's like putting light into darkness. Darkness is gone. And only then can we prostrate truly before God as our sustainer, not only physically, but with our heart and soul. Otherwise, for instance, the ayat, the meaning of life, an example that we gave in the past in receiving Nur, when we are in the ego, it seems like life events are like scribbles. They may be instead of meaningful writing. And they may be like beautiful scribbles, like if you have a piece of calligraphy, you may not understand what it's saying, but it's pretty. So we do hang it on the wall because it's so pretty. But someone else's hangs it, not only because it's pretty, because its meaning is beautiful, because it reminds us of a very profound truth. In the ego, we see pretty scribbles. It's very pretty, it's a picture, but we don't know the meaning. We may not even be aware that it is writing. Then when we are in between, we say, this is writing, but I don't know how to read it. And then we start, the more we live from the soul, we identify with the soul, the more we start learning how to read it. And then the main thing that attracts us there is not only the pretty writing, scribbles, but the meaning that they convey. That meaning is what matters. That's the true, lasting, enduring thing in the creation. That's the face of things, the aspect of things that looks to their maker, that looks to and only then, when we live from the heart and the soul, we can grasp that these are words, meaningful words with meaningful messages. And only there we can learn to read and understand their meanings. So learning how to read the messages of the ayat involves inner work. First, intention, and shift in attitude. The more we move away from the ego with its all false, I-centered assumptions about ourselves and life, the more we will be able to see things as they are, meaningful messages from beyond, telling us about the meaning of life, the purpose of life, how to be guided to the easiest, the most comfortable path into life. It's a map. They're giving us, they're showing us the way. The ego-based perception is always tainted with shirk. We cannot go out of shirk as long as we stay there. And in order to clear the distortions, we have to start by cleaning the inner stains, the inner false claims. And that's only possible when we surrender to the reality. For instance, today we said, when we surrender to the reality that we are not creators, we accept that we are neither creators nor co-creators. Things are being done unto us. We are sustained here and now 24/7. The more we practice this reflection, staying with it, feeling it, milking it, and not glossing over it, stay there until it becomes so familiar, the more when we find ourselves in ego again, it will be very easy to make istighfar and come back to reality, because that reality is now something familiar. We are being sustained here and now. So the journey towards, this is a journey towards remembering who we are, remembering our home, where we are coming from right now. And it's a journey towards acknowledging our sustainer. That's when the journey starts.
Okay, let's listen to the question from, or comment from Brother Elijah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thanks for having me. I joined a little bit late tonight. I'm sorry I haven't been able to attend. I'm on the West Coast, so these are my business hours, and now I can speak. It's after 5 o'clock here. So I want to thank Dr. Yamina, of course, for and of course Sister Maha and everyone for organizing this. And Dr. Yamina, she has, mashallah, she mentioned a few things, and I've just been listening, tying them all together. And the last thing that really resonated was two things. One is changing our perspective, being aware of our perception and how we imagine or perceive our reality or our existence here. And then also that things are happening to us. From my perspective, things are happening to me, that I'm a recipient. And earlier, the sister, I think, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, I think it was Latifa. She doesn't seem to be at her chair at the moment, but she had said a word that it struck me a little strange. I hadn't heard it in a long time. She said, "Nahna bil imtihan," that we're in an imtihan, in a test. And when I heard that, it shocked me a little bit, because I don't usually hear this word in terms of to describe my reality, that is the experiences that are coming to me, that are being given to me. I don't know if they are imtihan, an examination, like in a class. And it reminded me of, to be honest, of sitting in Dr. Yamina's Arabic class when I would get imtihanat, and she would write Fashilat Miskin Ilyas, like he failed. But the way that if I could shift the perception of my reality away from this imtihan view, that I'm being examined and that I have an exam, that I have to fill the answers, and Allah will check them off, like correct, incorrect, and then at the end of my life, I get my grade. Instead of this kind of perception of how I'm experiencing this world, it's funny because the word test has a slightly different meaning than this. There's an exam, right? Then an examiner, a tester, will examine something. But the Old English word for test is actually not related to that at all. And then the Arabic word for test, old word, is not imtihan at all. It's ibtila. So when we read in the Quran, it talks about ibtila, which is extraordinary because in the word imtihan, there's no negative connotation, right? It's an exam. But in the word ibtila, there's a nuance there. It means a difficulty, a hardship, right? A bala is a hardship, and it's the same in the other Semitic languages too, Arabic and Hebrew. They share this. I bring this up because in English, the word test originally, the earliest records of English, 14th century, 14th century Chaucer. When they said the word test, they didn't mean an exam. A test was a cauldron that was used in an alchemist's laboratory. It's a metallurgical term. A test, and this is the same in the Arabic sense of ibtila, not imtihan, but in ibtila. The test is a cauldron that holds all of the mixtures of metals and the pollution and the foreign elements, and it would heat up and vibrate and separate the metals so that you will have pure silver, pure gold, pure iron, pure copper, to filter and to separate the pollutants from the pure elements. So in this sense, life is this ibtila. It is this hardship, because the experiences that are being delivered to me is not an exam. I have no way to know if I'm being examined like imtihan, but rather if you understand that the difficulties that I experience in my life, that is the purification, that is the testing. So when we, even in the expression to test one's metal, this is what this means. To test one's metal is to purify the metal of the weaknesses, of its deficiencies and defects. And then to test the metal would be to see if that metal can withstand the pressure that is required of, like, maybe a sword or something, that it would not break under pressure. And so in this sense, if I change my perspective, as Dr. Yamina was explaining, to see this world as not, oh, woe is me, all of these meaningless struggles that I have. They're not meaningless struggles. They're not simply, my child is sick, or my father died, or something. They're not just happening to me out of bad luck. There's no such thing as luck in my understanding. If I understand that I have purpose, and that everything in this life has purpose, and then everything that happens to me must be on purpose, then there are no accidents, there are no mistakes. It's purely, these are delivered to me as trials, as tribulations, as difficulties, packaged as they are packaged, or they appear to be simply just difficulties. But if you unpackage it, you'll see that the risala in each of these difficulties, if you unpackage it, you'll see that the ayah there, the message that's being delivered to me, is the means of preparing me for what my real life is going to be, or that it should be, that it should become. That this is the closest thing that I can think of is with Sayyidina Rumi, when he says, the poem, and Sister Maha will know this better than me, correct me, my mistake here, the poem of Rumi about the chickpea, and the chickpea is complaining about the what do you call it, the spoon that the cook is beating him with, and then he says, this is to make you soft and to make you ready, to make you edible. And so then the chickpea says, beat me some more, please. Give me more, make me tender, make me ready. So I'm sure this is wrong, but this is, in general, the understanding is that the ibtila that I receive, the experiences that I have in this world, that if they, on the surface or on a superficial examination of them or a superficial view of them, is that they're just hardships, and well, life is meaningless and stupid, and I hate everything, and I'm miserable because everything is difficult and I don't understand what's going on. Or that that I am in the test. That is the alchemist's test. This cauldron that is heating up to separate the impurities, to purify me. And so this is in my opinion, or in my experience, to shift my perspective. This is how I want to look at it, rather than this very cumbersome translation of the word test into Arabic. It should not be imtihan here, but rather ibtila, and difficulties. Jazakallah khair. I've spoken a lot.
Elijah, you have to come back, inshallah, and explore this notion more, and add to it whether the question of whether people can stand the heat of being in the cauldron and being beaten up to be tender. But you will have to come back. We have 2-3 more days, inshallah. I'll contact you to see if you can come back and explore this, as we are beyond our time. But Dr. Yamina, go ahead, and I'll ask Zahra to read us through the chat before we close.
2 points. I don't know if you can say it very shortly. One is, thank you, Elijah, for your contribution. It's what Elijah brought was looking at the same traditional notion, where usually we don't call it imtihan here in our discussions, usually in the past, because in the Quran it's ibtila or bala liyabluwakum. From when we are in the ego base, it seems like I am outside and an imtihan is coming to me. Where is the imtihan? But when it is soul-based, then it is my experience of the world is speaking, being made to speak to me. In the Quran, we've seen many ayats. Actually, I think we even had some sessions just for ibtila, where in the Quran it says, for instance, وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَكَانَ. So he's the one who created this and this, and in some places even zayyana, he made everything beautiful. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So it means the purpose of the creation, to be created in a certain way, is directly related to the purpose of our being here. Bala is from the root balawa. If you remember, it has 2 main meanings. One, it implies, usually translated as afflicting, but it has 2 implications. One, it implies learning the state or the condition of something that is the recipient of the bala, and becoming acquainted with what was unknown. So there is something that was unknown that will become known through the bala. And it also implies that what is known, what was unknown and becomes known, could be a manifestation of something, a goodness or something bad. So it brings out the potential within us. It's not like have you learned something or haven't you? Testing in an exam, in a class. Here it's like it's an opportunity to bring out the potentials.
Like a birthing, like giving birth.
Like birth, helping us to birth things, nurturing and birthing all at the same time. But it's also telling us that this is related to, if we want to find our purpose, we have to also find the purpose of the creation and vice versa. The key of one is related to the key of the other. And it means we are created and everything is there to birth that, to create us, to fulfill those potentials that are only possible to the extent that we are mindful of that purpose. I will just leave it here.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina. And you said earlier that we cannot use I cannot keep using yesterday's Iman for today, for now, and for today's questions.
Can you imagine if I keep using yesterday's, it means I'm stuck at yesterday.
Type. Zahra, could you kindly read us quickly through the chat, and then I'll ask Dr. Sarah to close us with the Shahada.
Sure, Bismillah. So Sister Sarah shared, I found much beautiful relief with Dr. Yamina's reminder about the flow. I was starting to sink in sad grief about the death of my brother and the reminder that everything dies, almost numbing my joy in everything passing. But the ayah and the star, I'm looking at something that died, and here it is, right now before me, indicates the eternal source is living here, and everything is coming and going from this one, which brings me closer to the flow in a beautiful way. I shared one of my aha moments, which you just said, Sister Maha, about the can't keep using yesterday's Iman for now and for today's questions. Another sister posted, every soul shall taste death from Surah 3, Ayah 185, a promise and reminder from Allah. Another sister said, I give in His name. Thanks so much for the discussion on agency today. Needed to hear it. Sister Sarah said, this healing is holistic medicine, lifestyle change, how to think, how to feel, how to perceive. Other things that people included that struck them from the conversation, breaking idols equals we need to become conscious of the false claims of the ego and refute them and replace them with teachings of the Quran. Beautiful. Sister Seema says she agrees with Sarah, making our false claims of the ego very clear is very profound in order to cleanse ourselves from those idols. So maybe the important step we need to do, especially during these blessed days, could be identifying those idols. Sometimes we may fall into misconceptions of these claims that can be true claims, yet they are not. Then we can easily witness to say Labbayk. Sarah says ego feels burdens. Living from the soul feels free. Freedom is Tawheed. Sister Zubaydah said, I find that if I make intention, I am doing this action fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah, then that gets rid of the ego, the self, to serving Him alone and not serving myself. She also included that al-ibtila means trial. The Quran states, Allah has created death and life to test which one of you is best in deeds. And that is from Surah 67, Ayah 2. Our presence in this earth as a human being is a test for us from Allah. Allah tests us to purify us and wash away our sins. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, no calamity befalls a Muslim, but that Allah expiates some of his sins because of it, even if it were the prick of a thorn. She says, I say to myself, everything is a test. It doesn't have to be hardship as a test. A life of comfort and ease or great wealth is also a test. Sister Sarah said she loved the cauldron meaning that Brother Elijah shared of test, mashallah. And I think one of our last comments is tests are given to us to strengthen our iman, our faith. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the people who face the most difficult tests are the prophets, then the righteous, then those following them in degree. A person is tried according to his religion. So if there is firmness in his religion, then the trial is increased, and if there is a weakness, then it is lightened. Verily, a trial remains with the servant until he walks the earth, having no sin left upon him. And that ends our chat.
Thank you, Sister Zahra, for hosting us. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Yamina Bugnaya and Professor Isra Yazijolo. And thank you for everybody who wrote in the chat and who made comments. Tomorrow, inshallah, we see you again. Same time, 6 p.m. New York time, for the 6th day of Labbayk, our 2nd year. We will end with Labbayk, answering the call to God. May Allah make us present and aware and willing and making the choice to be connected to the eternal truth, to God, and answering His call. Could I ask Dr. Sarah to say the Shahada, and please take a moment and say the Shahada in your hearts as we renew our testifying of Tawheed.
Maha, Alif wrote a beautiful comment just now. Did you want me to read that first?
Yes, please. Please.
Alif shared, this discussion makes it easy to understand the hadith, mutu qabla an tamutu, meaning die before you die. It does not mean suicide, it means kill false agencies of every creation.
Thank you.
So with that, yes, beautiful sort of
So
point
true.
that myself with. With that, death, reminder of death in a beautiful way. Jazakallah khair, Alif, and to everyone who shared. I remind myself to bear witness that there is no source of existence of anything that I experience within or without, but it is from the source, the eternal, and I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his worshipper and messenger. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah abduhu wa rasuluh.
Ameen, ameen, ameen. في أمان الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you tomorrow, inshallah.